Welcome to the Disability Approval Path.
Welcome back to Social Security and Disability, the Approval Path with Ms. Deborah Spector, lead attorney and managing partner at Spector & Lenz, PC. With more than 40 years of experience, Deborah has dedicated her career to guiding Social Security and SSI claimants through every stage of the disability process, from the first application to federal court appeals. I'm Evan Mack, and today's episode is breaking down the Consultative exam, or CE. These are medical exams scheduled by the Social Security Administration. We'll talk about what really happens, how to prepare, and what to do afterwards so your claim stays on track. This is Consultative exams, what to expect and how to prepare. Ms. Debbie, how are you, my dear?
Good morning, Ms. Evan. I am terrific. How are you?
I'm well. It's good to see you.
Good to see you too.
Ms. Deborah, could you explain what a consultative exam is and why Social Security Administration schedules them for someone hearing the term for the first time?
You bet. So when you apply for Social Security disability, you agree that if the government wants to have one of their designated doctors examine you, you'll agree to do so and you'll cooperate with the process. These doctors are usually in private practice. They're retained by Social Security on contract. They're not paid very much for the examination. And it's usually kind of quick, often cursory, sometimes great, sometimes not so great in terms of the depth and care the doctor takes. They can also order certain kinds of testing. They can order imaging, x-rays. They don't order MRIs or CT scans or PET scans, certainly, and they can't do anything invasive. So they can do, for example, in an internal medicine exam, examine the claimant, examine the body, and ask you to get on and off the table and walk across the room, but they can't do anything invasive, any kind of invasive testing. There's no blood work or anything like that. They're ordered under a few circumstances. One is when the adjudicator is working on the case. And remember how this works. You apply, and then the case is shifted to a state agency where state employees gather the evidence, including the consultative exams. And on the first appeal, it's also heard by the state agency or managed by the state agency. They're the ones who order the CEs. That's what we call these consultative exams. They're ordered when there's insufficient evidence to make a good decision on the case. They're ordered when there's a dispute in the evidence, when there's something contradictory, either among the doctors or between the symptoms and allegations made and the doctor's reports. And we believe that they're also offered in situations in which the claim would have to be approved unless there's some controverting evidence, but the adjudicator isn't confident it's a solid claim. And then she can order a consultative exam. The claimant is given notice. If the claimant has a lawyer, the lawyer is given notice, time and place. If it's too far away, there's a very modest mileage charge that can be paid. If you're going to seek that, you have to ask for it early and often. But generally, it's the claimant's responsibility to get there, participate in the examination, do everything that's required. And then a report is issued, not to the claimant. The report, however, is posted in the claimant's file online. And so if the claimant is represented, the representative can go into the file and procure a copy of the report when it's available.
So Ms. Debbie, how should someone prepare, though? Are there specific records, medication lists, or identification they should bring along, which as far as documentation goes?
Well, absolutely bring identification. Anytime you do anything with Social Security or any other facet of the government, bring good identification. Tell you the truth, I'm planning to carry my passport these days. Bring identification, photo ID, number one. Number two, don't bring anything that could be confiscated to any appointment with Social Security, whether it's field office, hearing, consultative exam. Leave the pocket knives at home. Don't bring anything with you. Number three, I recommend to my clients that they bring a copy of their medication list or actually put the meds into a Ziploc bag and take them along to the exam. I also recommend to our clients a few things. Number one is sit back, relax, and above all, be candid and be complete in what you tell the consultative examiner. Never, the worst things you can do here are either exaggerating or minimizing symptoms, and functional problems.
Mm,
Just be candid. It just does not work in this system to not be absolutely candid and full at every step of the process. I also recommend our clients take along, I usually suggest an index card, nothing bigger, a small card, a small piece of paper on which you write down all of your impairments so you don't forget one. You know, there's nothing worse than, well, there are a lot of things worse, but I don't like opening up a consultative exam and seeing that my client who complains of low back pain with numbness going down to the feet spent all of her time at the consultative exam talking about her shoulders. Just make sure you hit every high point. It is not necessary, in my opinion, to bring your medical records.
mm,
And that's a really interesting subject because supposedly the CE will have access to at least some records, and they recite in the report which records they reviewed.
right.
They do not want you, and it will backfire if you walk in with a 4-inch stack of medical records and say, "Hey, read these before you talk to me." That just doesn't flow. It doesn't work. I think the important things are all impairments, candor, no exaggeration, and no diminution. Don't shy away from things that really bother you and also things that might be less than pleasant. You know, GI
Mm,
problems, embarrassing problems like
right.
inability to lift your kids, problems in the washroom. We we find over the years, especially in GI matters, washroom issues are important. Don't be embarrassed with this stranger. It's a doctor, and make sure you cover everything. These exams are conducted by doctors. They're on a panel that have agreed to do these exams for Social Security, as I said, at a not very high rate. And, you're going to get one shot, sometimes two, but usually one shot at telling this person what's really going on
Hmm.
here.
So Ms. Debbie, what does the examiner usually ask or test during these exams? For physical conditions, maybe versus mental health conditions.
Sure, it depends on what's been ordered by the adjudicator. So the adjudicator can order several different kinds of exams, but the more common exams are internal medicine and mental health. And with internal medicine, they do a review of the body systems. They go boop, 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 boop. It's on a template. Did you see, how does the head look? How do the arms move? How does all the way down? And there will be questions, a history taken, and then a brief examination. And that report will follow a template. For mental health, it's usually a mental status exam, a rather quick exam that asks some of the standard questions. What do you do if you smell smoke in a theater? What do you do if you find a stamped envelope on the ground? It's a pretty simple but telling mental health exam.
Hmm.
Now, there can also be specialty exams ordered, and it's not that difficult in a place like Chicago, where we practice, where there are a lot of doctors. But if SSA needs a neurologist, an ophthalmologist, a neuropsychologist, those are harder to find, and it's more difficult for SSA to schedule specialty exams, but we ask for them frequently. And we have to do it when our client has a dearth of medical evidence.
Hmm.
If we have a client who's presenting obviously with a mental health problem, but is not in any kind of mental health care, we may say to the government, could you please get this guy a psych exam? Let's see what's
Right.
going on.
If a claimant has multiple medical issues, how can they make sure the examiner understands the full picture and not just that focus on that one diagnosis?
The index card,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, the index card really works, and
Right.
important to go in prepared to make sure you tell the doctor. Now, the next thing about it is after the exam report is available, review it. Ask your lawyer to get it from the internet, review it, and then if something is grossly missing, then that's the opportunity to put in a statement about that.
Hmm.
Or if something improper happened during the exam, that's the opportunity to write a statement that we then put into the record about why we think the exam was deficient. Sometimes clients will call. I usually ask them to check in with me after the exam, and then I know to start looking for the report, and I make a note of everything. And Sometimes clients will say it was a terrible exam, or not, not going to, and I say, just wait for the report.
Right.
Sometimes these reports are very helpful, and experienced lawyers know that combing the narrative of the report, not just the conclusions, but if you go into the narrative, often you can find things that will really help your case. Even if your client thinks she had a crummy, cursory examination, if that doctor wrote down that she has difficulty using her fingers, for example, and that he tested her grip and it was only 3 out of 5,
Hmm.
something like that can make or break a case. So it has to be examined closely.
What are some common mistakes people make with these exams, like missing an appointment, minimizing symptoms you were talking about earlier? Or how can listeners avoid these mistakes?
Okay, well, the big ones I mentioned earlier are exaggerating and minimizing.
Hmm.
Don't do either one. Remember, as we've discussed before, the name of the game here in the medical evidence is consistency and supportability. When the individual goes to her doctor, are the records consistent within that doctor's file and from doctor to doctor? Is she going complaining about the same thing again and again and again? That's powerful. So again, with the consultative exam, it has to be consistent with what the individual tells her own doctor. Exaggerating blows up.
Hmm.
Minimizing hurts you.
Hmm.
Candor helps. Now, do you have to go to one of these exams? It's a question I'm asked from time to time. And the answer is you betcha. You have to go. SSA can and will deny an individual's claim if she fails to attend a consult and doesn't have good cause. Now, certainly, if you've gone to the emergency room and you've been hospitalized and you can't get there, good cause. Death in the family, good cause. But they will reschedule once. And if you refuse to go, frankly, I say to the client, I can't help you with this case. We all have to participate in the system. They can deny the claim if you don't go to a consult. So we encourage clients to go, be careful, be prepared, and also don't overthink it. You know, there's no cause for anxiety. Now, sometimes some of these exam facilities are not the best. They're not like going to your own doctor's office or
Right.
going to a hospital where you can expect a certain level of professionalism, frankly, cleanliness. You're not going to see that sometimes. And I say, just don't worry about it. Let's wait till we get the text of the exam and see what the doctor actually said.
Once this exam is over, how is that report used, in the disability decision process? How can these inaccuracies or incomplete reports be challenged?
Great question. So these reports, like your treating doctor's reports since 2017, when the rules changed, these are among the many opinions from doctors or other medical providers we'll find in a client's file. And the adjudicator or the judge, if the case is at hearing, has to weigh them and decide which ones are going to be given weight, which ones are going to be found not to be persuasive and not entitled to weight. And again, they look at consistency and supportability. How consistent are these over time? Are there medical findings that are consistently explaining what the doctor sees in functional limitations and symptoms? So again, consistency, lack of exaggeration, they will all factor into how they're weighed. Specialty counts. It doesn't trump. So, for example, if it's a neurological impairment and SSA sends you to an internal medicine consult, and you have a neurologist who says, "Hey, I'm looking at Parkinson's disease,"
Hmm.
and for some reason the internal medicine doctor questions that, you can pretty much count on the specialist being given greater weight. So it kind of depends on what the reports say, but a thorough, consistent exam is given a lot of weight. And if a judge or adjudicator wants to deny a case, this
Right.
is what's used.
You kind of touched on it right there, but how can these consultative exam findings fit together with records from someone's regular doctors? Does one carry more weight than the other?
Well, if you've been seeing a doctor, especially a specialist, for years, and the records are consistent and the complaints are consistent and all the proper testing has been done and the diagnoses are supportable, that's going to outweigh a
Hmm.
one-shot consult. but we have to argue that often in front of judges. If we have clients, and we have many, who are not able to access high quality medical care, even in a city like this, who may have sketchy medical care, who may use emergency rooms rather than consistent primary care, who have mental health disorders without mental health care, then that consult carries a lot more weight.
And finally, Ms. Debbie, what's your advice for someone who just received a notice for one of these exams and feels anxious about what it means for their case?
Well, call your lawyer. If you have a lawyer, call your lawyer. And
Yeah.
I'll say to you, okay, here's my advice always about going to the hearing, going to the consult, whatever. I would be a fool to say to you, don't be nervous about this, right? You have a lot at stake here. This is about your income. It's about dignity. It's about living decently when you're disabled and can't work. So it'd be ridiculous for me to say, just relax, don't worry about it. But I do say, try to relax, sit back, listen to the questions, answer them candidly and carefully, go in with your index card, go in with your medication list or medications. And remember, this is not adversarial. These exam results are often used to deny cases, no question, but they're also used to approve cases.
Okay.
And I think consult with somebody. If you don't have a lawyer, consult with someone who's been through this process or knows something about the process, and I'm sure you'll be reassured. And it's also necessary. I'll repeat, if we have a client who refuses to cooperate with the CE process, our hands are tied, and we don't necessarily disengage, but I'm sure tempted to.
All right. Miss Debbie, thank you.
Okay, great pleasure. Talk to you soon.
Good stuff. That's it for today's episode of Social Security and Disability, the Approval Path with attorney Deborah Spector. If you or someone you know is facing a Social Security or SSI claim, visit spectorandlens.com to schedule a free consultation. And if this episode helped clarify the process, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with anyone who might need it. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you, Evan. Bye-bye. Good to see you.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.